Detroit Lions podcast. Powered by the Monroe County Reporters. Here are your hosts, Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Talking Grit. I'm Jason Harwood. With me is Jacob Litton. You know, when we started this podcast, Jacob and I started a year ago, one of the first guys that I reached out to as our first guest. He is the host of a great Lions podcast called Not the Same Old Lions Podcast. It is Matthew Soltysiak. He's on the pod with us today. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk Lions with you guys.
Yeah. It seems to be this time of year that we always get together, right? We got different practice stories to share, and just kind of works out well. Matt, you're always, welcome to join the show at other times of the year if it works out. But it's great talking football with you. But Jacob, I want to check in with you. I haven't talked to you in, it's been about a week. So how you been doing? What's new?
I've been good, man. Not too much. Trying to get the kids ready for school. School's coming really soon here. I know
Don't
both of you
remind
guys
Matt.
relate to that,
Matt's
right?
a teacher.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to know about that.
Right. The summer's coming to an
Actually,
end.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, we had open house for the kids today. We just got back from Chicago. Had a good, I don't know if you've ever been to Chicago, Matt, but it was awesome. Kind of a sports trip, along with some other stuff. Saw Wrigley Field, did a tour of Wrigley Field. Highly recommend that to anybody. My wife even really enjoyed it, and there was just a lot of cool stuff to see in the ballpark. Took us to the press box, got to go down, took pictures next to the ivy. It was super cool. Cubs weren't playing, so we didn't get to see a game at Wrigley, but we did go over to Old Commit. I always want to say
South side.
Comiskey, but the south side at Guaranteed Rate Field. Saw the Tigers lose, but that ballpark, I wasn't one of my favorite ballparks, but there was some pretty cool stuff that my son and I checked out with the kids area, and it was good. And the fans, I had a ton of Tiger fans around me, so I felt very at home there. Rode the subway for the first time in my life ever. I don't know if either of you have ever rode a subway, but I was a little worried with the kids, and that was actually went really well, and my kids loved it. So definitely want to go back, but I highly recommend doing the Wrigley Field thing. I've been there once to watch a game. This tour was awesome. It was like 75 minutes, and it was a great time. Well, let's get over here. Let's talk about the Lions. Jacob, why don't you talk about just get everybody caught up with some transactions and injuries that have happened since we've been on the pod last week.
All right. So since last week, we'll just start with the interesting one for me is we signed guard Keaton Sutherland, and then in 4 days we had to put him on injured reserve. Very brief time with the Lions before he's hurt, and now he's out. Also being placed on IR, offensive tackle Justin Herron, guard Colby Sorsdahl, tight end Kenny Yeboah, and cornerback DiCaprio Boodle. We also waived with the injury settlement to running back Jabari Small. So these were all guys, fighting for roster spots, and now suddenly, those fights become more clear in the final 53. We did sign offensive lineman Zach Johnson, cornerback Alan George, tackle Gunnar Britton, another gunner, tight end Gunnar Oaks, and then running back Deion Jackson. So, amongst these guys, I know Deion Jackson is the only one that's got considerable NFL experience. He's played in like 30 games or something like that. Played in the UFL last year, but really, these are just camp bodies. When you're this far into camp and these guys are not on a team, the chances of them actually making the roster is very, very slim. But, the chance of them suiting up and being able to play versus Miami looks like it might be happening.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to see some guys this weekend. Matt, I wanted to talk to you. A lot of these guys have UFL experience. It seems like the Lions are going down that route. To me, it just makes sense. What's your thoughts on why they're doing that?
Well, I think they asked Coach Campbell about it earlier this week, and he was like, well, these guys aren't sitting on the couch, right? They're coming off a season. They've been working. They're in shape. And you've got a lot of very current tape on these guys. And so it's an easier job for them to transition than maybe an unknown person who you have no tape on in the last 8 to 10 months, if not longer. And you don't know what type of shape they're in. And you always hear what they say, right? There's getting in shape, and then there's football shape. And so if they're already in football shape from that, it's almost a natural lead-in for them, and the Lions have definitely taken advantage of that.
Yeah, uh I like that thought process. It just makes sense. Like you said, there's a total difference between working out in the gym and then just getting out playing football. I mean, those guys are ready to come in. Uh, like Jacob said, long shot that any of these guys are going to make the team. Even the practice squad is going to be a long shot, I feel, at this point. But we need people to play on Saturday against the Dolphins. And based on how these joint practices have gone, the second and first teams have gotten a lot of reps, so I don't think they're going to be playing all that much on Saturday. So, uh, Jacob, I know you said something about Keaton Sutherland. DiCaprio Boodle was all and Yaboa were interesting just because DiCaprio Boodle, well, I think making the team was a long shot. He was getting like first team reps because of the injuries. So I mean, like that was kind of a downer for a guy like that. And then Colby Sorsdale's the other one, right? I mean, that guy, Lions draft pick. I think this might actually benefit him. Maybe have a chance at making the team next year. I don't know how it's gonna because I he had an upswing after the first preseason game, but then, I don't it seemed like it was gonna be a long shot for him to make it. So I'm wondering if this is gonna help him in the long run have a chance to prepare for next year. Any thoughts, Jacob?
Yeah, he's somebody, Sorsdal been around for a little bit. He's just somebody that needs this experience, needs the practice, needs the time. Unfortunate for him to have the injury. As far as Boodle and Yaboa go, I mean, when you look at the roster, you look at the injuries that we've already had at cornerback. I mean, Boodle, I think, was on the outside looking in, but I think it was within grasp of him making this team based on the last few weeks, how it goes. And then Yaboa, the same kind of thing. He's, fringe, more likely than not to, not make the team, but maybe be on the practice squad. And now that's over with. And now suddenly, you look at the tight end room, Laporta just announced that he's going to be out for a little bit here, but it didn't sound nothing major, nothing long term. But, when you look at the tight end room as a whole, that's pretty much already, that's set in stone, I think, almost now, right? If you had any questions before about Yaboa possibly making it or what he's doing, or maybe Zach Horton sneaking in there, now I just don't think it's a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts, Matt?
Well, I guess as far as Colby Sorsdale goes, the Lions have drafted 4 offensive linemen in the last 2 years. So that's 4 new guys that have come in since Colby was drafted. And Tate Ratledge, obviously expected to be a starter. Giovanni Manu getting some reps, but Christian Mahogany a starter. So you got 2 starters right there. And then Miles Frazier, him and Manu both have a lot of upside. So, Jacob's right, Sorsdale needs to just start stepping it up. And obviously he can't do that right now. Everybody, every beat writer has said he's on bubble watch, and a lot of people thought he was going to be on the wrong side of the bubble this year. And Jacob was like, he needs reps. And I agree with that. He needs reps. He needs them in the games, preseason. And that was the hope that we were going to see that. Unfortunately, it's not going to be the case. And so he's going to have his work cut out next year for him.
Yep, definitely. I'm with you. That leads into what I know I was super excited about, and I know Matt was excited because he was there, got to see the first of the joint practice, got to see Wednesday's joint practices. This was like we had, the defense was dominating up until this point, but we don't know because we're playing each other. We need to see the number ones play other teams' number ones just to see where we match up. Is it an anomaly, or is the defense just not that good and the offense isn't playing good because we got new coordinators, or is it that they're both just dominant and they're it's two opposing forces that are fighting each other, right? That's what we wanted to see. So as we go through these joint practices, Matt was there firsthand on Wednesday, got to see him with his own eyes. So we're going to get that knowledge from him. We'll also talk about Thursday's practice, what we've learned from the beat writers, what was said from, Dan Campbell's meetings, and also from the media availability after the practice, what they've showed on YouTube. And then we've gotten some YouTube highlights too that we could also talk about, which Amon-Ra just, on another level, right? So, Matt, going into it, we're going into the practice on Wednesday. What were you wanting to see, or what was it that was on your in your notebook? What were you writing down? Like, this is what I got to check out. I got to write notes on this.
Well, I like probably most people, I wanted to see how the first stringers looked, right? Because you don't see them in the preseason. We know that's the Lions' MO. They don't do that. And I wanted to see it. And I hadn't seen, I had not been to a practice yet, and you'd heard the offense is behind the defense, right? And so you're like, all right, well, we want to see how the offense does. And we keep hearing, well, Hutch is destroying the play, so they have a rule that if Hutch gets in there, you just keep playing. And so, again, I want to see them going against a defense that didn't know them already. And you want to see Taylor Decker out there because he changes the calculus of everything when he's at left guard, and we saw that on Wednesday when against the Dolphins when they were practicing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jacob, what were you? I mean, were you eyeing this week like I was for the joint practices?
Oh yeah, we've been talking about it. I mean, I wish I could have been there like Matt. I wanted to see this in person. This is, we don't see the starters in the preseason. This was kind of going to be the first test. And this is also going to, was this going to be me, getting my nerves relaxed, or is this going to be sounding the alarm on the offense as to, what's going on? Is our defense really that good? What's happening here? And, to hear how well they were clicking, you saw the highlights, you saw, everything. I know the Dolphins don't exactly have, a great defense, but they do have some good players, and just awesome to hear that they did well. I know Jared Goff said that he was getting annoyed with his defense and going against those guys every day, and he was just excited, for them to go annoy somebody else. And it helps just seeing fresh people. They don't know what routes and what concepts that you're running. They don't know the different things. And like Matt already said, with Decker back, was at the perfect time too. Because I've talked about this before. I really want the line to get set as a unit. I want them to play as a unit. And with Decker there, they've already started improving. And Dan Campbell said, he said, Tate Ratledge looked like a starting NFL guard. So that's praise from Dan Campbell finally, on Tate. It's just, seems like he's actually ready to go.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Matt, let's talk about Amon-Ra and Jared Goff. Jacob just mentioned him getting annoyed with the defense. Didn't look annoyed by the Dolphins defense from the reports out there. What did you see out there?
Well, first off, I want to say I saw a quarterback who had all kinds of time. Okay, if you remember that song from back in the day, he had tons of time to throw the ball. And so that's number one. That's like the most important thing I think that we have to take away from this, because that's the big thing, right? With Ragnow gone, with Zeitler gone, it's like, all right, how is this going to look with these new moving pieces? And it looked good. And so that right there gives you a lot of confidence and hope. So he had lots of time to survey the field, and then he looked like Jared Goff. He looked like the Jared Goff that we saw for most of last year, making good decisions, making accurate passes, and finding a variety of receivers. So Goff looked really good, and the offensive line allowed him to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I got to tell you, if the Lions put out the highlight reel of that practice, Amon-Ra, it's over a minute straight of Amon-Ra, just Amon-Ra highlights. I'm telling you, if you could put a minute tape of just one player's highlights, just tells you how dominant he was. You saw the video, Jacob, correct?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. What did you think?
I think almost every single rep was on the same cornerback.
Yeah.
I think it was Jack Jones, and they said that were picking on him most of the day. But I also saw they were making those like the slow and took still images of Jack Jones just being completely like his body was contorted. Like Amon-Ra just had him like on ice. And, it was, I think, the first part of the highlight reel where you kind of just put him a move, and then Amon-Ra is like 8 yards behind him and isn't even sprinting into the end zone. Just, it looked easy for him out there. Him and Goff were clicking, and like I said earlier, I know the Dolphins necessarily not top tier players or anything like that on defense, but, great to see them clicking.
Were they chirping out there too, Matt? Could you hear them after they were scoring?
Oh, I will say, I think Jack Jones had a really rough day. You heard a lot of people saying 23, and there was a little chirping, and a little bit of physicality, a little bit of energy and whatnot. The Lions, just in general, the offense, they looked loose and relaxed, and it's almost like you saw that confidence that people wondered about. And again, I didn't see their struggles against the Lions' own defense, during the practices earlier this season, but you could just see it's like they had their swagger. They had that feeling about them. And they were pretty much unstoppable. I mean, if you want to get into Amon-Ra, I would love to start talking about what I saw out of him.
Yeah, just go right into it, man.
Because you already brought it up when you were a guest on my show earlier that the back shoulder pass thing was going on early, and it's crazy because Goff was hitting him on go routes and on back shoulder routes. I mean, the one pass in the end zone where he wrapped his arm around the guy. He didn't even have separation. You guys, I mean, the video's been everywhere, and you were talking about it. But he held on to it. I mean, the crowd went crazy, and then that's when St. Brown punted the ball. He just punted that thing up in the air, and it was either after that touchdown or the next one that then the running game did something fun, and we can talk about that later. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, I've said this, I don't know if it's possible for him to go to another level, but it looks like he might be going to another level. He's got the talent, but he's also got that work ethic that pushes him. And he and Goff, those back shoulder things, and it wasn't just him. Goff was hitting other guys too. But it's going to be a tough matchup for any secondary with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams and the rest of the company involved as well.
Yeah, the Amon-Ra stuff, that back shoulder throw is going to be unreal if they get that working, because that's something that I haven't really seen them use in a game or remember them using in a game. And if Amon-Ra adds that to his repertoire, he's already seemingly unstoppable. Everyone knows that he's got to get it on a third or fourth down on a gotta need it play, and he's still open. And it's not even close. It's like he's got good hands. He's going to make the catch, but he gives him so much space. Like, you got that poster right behind you that says finally, right? The Lions needed that first down to Amon-Ra. Everyone in the building, all 65,000 of us, knew Amon-Ra was going to get it, and he still gets it. And he's done that repeatedly in the NFL. I really like even on the go routes, them getting it over the top, because you don't see Amon-Ra doing that as very much. Like either that's not been part of their offense. I mean, Amon-Ra's, I remember leading up to last year was like Amon-Ra wants to add the deep passing game. That's what he wanted. They had some long touchdowns, but they were mostly intermediate routes that Amon-Ra just ended up taking to the house just out of good play design. If they add the go route and the back shoulder throw, that's going to be awesome. And then also, if we could start adding some of that in, we might start getting some of those pass interference penalties that we didn't called on last year because we're going deep. And I know how frustrating that is, like as a Lions fan, when they don't catch it, but it's an underthrown ball or whatever, and they get a pass interference penalty. Let's be demoralizing to the other team. That's what I want to see. What else?
Well,
go ahead. Go on, Matt.
That touchdown catch where he punted the ball, there was no separation on that one. He made an incredible catch. But he was getting a lot of separation, because they didn't know if he was going to go or drop back and stop. And he's such a meticulous route runner that just adds one more element to his game, that it really is going to keep those defenses guessing. And like you said, if we can start doing that deep ball a little bit more, it's going to just make it that much more difficult for them to defend.
And, you got a receiver that's just, he's hard to cover. So your initial thoughts as a defense, well, I just need to put two guys on him, shade over there. But you can't do that, because if you're going to leave JMO one-on-one, he's going to take you deep too. And that's that deadly combination that they have. You mentioned Laporta, Jacob, him being out. He's just another part of that intermediate coverage that teams are just going to have trouble, covering. Talk about JMO a little bit. I know on the practice that you went to that he might have had a couple drops, but how did he look other than that?
Yeah, so on those drops, though, he beat the guy. He had beat the guy deep, and so that was nice to see. He is still doing that. His route running is doing well. He caught a really tough one over the middle. And the reason I say a tough one was it was an intermediate one, but not that intermediate. It was pretty close, and Goff throwed a pretty good dart right to him, and he just grabbed it and went. And he kind of didn't go down right away. So, the hard running and whatnot. So he did come back with some other good catches. And you said it, you have both of those guys there. Well, the Lions were also lined up in shotgun a lot on Wednesday, which really surprised me. And At one point, they lined up with 5 wide. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? But then I realized Gibbs, it was either Gibbs or Monty. One of them was lined up out wide to the left. And then they're doing so much pre-snap motion. Then he just comes back to the backfield and lines up at running back. And so there are going to be endless possibilities that they can do with this offense.
Yeah. Jacob, having Gibbs and Monty, just shifting them around, what do you think that's going to do to a defense? I mean, we keep talking about this pony setup that they got and the pony package, and then it just sounds super exciting. And I know that they had a 2-back setup today. I don't know if either of you heard about this, but we could talk about that in a second. But what do you think about that 2-back set?
You can't cover everybody, right? I mean, that's when you have both running backs, especially like Matt said, when somebody's out wide. I mean, the defense is already trying to think what they're doing. You're using motion. I just can't wait to see it in the game. But, you've got so many weapons on offense. Like I just said, you cannot cover everybody. You can't possibly plan around everybody. We're going to be able to find the weak spot. And I think that's what, having both of them out there is going to do. It also enables, you could have 2 or 3 play calls depending on the defense that you see. And if everybody's on the same page and the offense is running like it's supposed to, you can check down or kill into whatever kind of run or, quick play, screen pass. I mean, the possibilities are endless. You do whatever you want out there.
Yeah, the thing that I like about it is that I think it's gonna make the defense tip their hand in far as what they're running. And when you got a guy like Jared Goff back there, as seasoned vet as he is, he's just gonna be able to beat you apart. And so I think that is gonna be an interesting. I'm curious to see how this is gonna work out on the field, just like everybody else. The play that I was alluding to today was no one's saying this. The beat writers can't say, but from what I've read, it sounds like a Wildcat situation with Dave Montgomery back there. So that's just cool. I want to see it. I mean, I know it's kind of like a gimmicky type play, but we know that Demo can throw it, and so it's exciting. And then if you take Jared Goff out there and then like say we're bringing in an extra blocker and say that's a guy like Tesla, right? He's just an extra blocker for JMO. Then you got this whole, everybody can block. Whereas when you don't have the quarterback in there, when you have the quarterback in there, he's kind of just out of the scheme. But if we take the quarterback totally off the field and run this and Tesla's out there, man, that it could turn into something.
If you got Demo at quarterback and you could have JMO in motion, and you have like a jet sweep kind of thing, or you could fake and then just Demo running,
I know.
Tate Ratledge pulling.
Oh, I know.
Well, then you've got Jameer lined up next to him. And if I'm not mistaken, Goff was lined up at wide receiver on that play. Yeah. And so if you drop him back and it's a lateral to the top of the field, I mean, dude, it could get crazy. Like, we thought we already saw crazy with Ben Johnson.
I know. Yeah, there's just so much that could happen. It's going to be exciting. We won't see anything of this till week 1. But yeah, the trick plays are still going to happen. They're just going to be a little different this year, which will be all right. You mentioned the offensive line, Matt. Were there one-on-ones the day that you were there too on Wednesday? Remind me, I can't remember.
There were some off over in the distance. I didn't get to see much of one-on-one stuff. At least I think there was. But I mostly, where I was sitting, was mostly just seeing the offense as far as like 7-on-7s and then 11-on-11s. I did see some one-on-one drills with like linebackers on the running backs, and
that's always
let me tell you, David Montgomery was beating those linebackers.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly what Jacob and I saw, and even a guy like Jack Campbell, he's making him look silly. So yeah, those are we're going to practice. If anyone is listening to this and is going to practice, those are probably that and the wide receiver cornerback one-on-one drills. If they're doing one-on-one stuff, those are just so much fun to watch. It was like must see TV if it was on TV. Today, the offensive line, I'm going by Justin Rogers' report. I'm just going to talk about the first team offensive line. He had them as, everyone had, all 5 starters had 2 reps each. He has 9 wins and 1 tie. So everyone won 2. The only one that tied was Tate Ratledge, and that was against Kenneth Grant, Michigan's Kenneth Grant, rookie on rookie there. And he had that as a tie. That's such an awesome sight to see because my first practice, they were getting so much pressure on Jared Goff. Now Taylor Decker wasn't back. It seems like Taylor Decker's back and we're all starting to gel. I think Tate said, working between, Panay and Graham, they're starting to get some chemistry there, which is really nice to see. Um, was there anything else like that you saw from the offensive line that either was surprising or you were happy to see, other than the time that they gave Jared Goff?
I would say the run game was working,
Okay.
and actually, let's talk about that because I think it
Yeah,
was
go
right
ahead.
after the back-to-back touchdown passes. They went and ran one in, and I just happened to be watching Tesla on that play for one reason or another, and he drove that guy down the field. It was so impressive. And then Tesla's helmet came off, and then they did get a little chirpy, like
Yeah.
you were asking about earlier,
Mhm.
and I also it might have been that play or it might have been a different play where I believe it was Gibbs went in and got the touchdown and the one of the Miami players didn't like it very much and tried to knock the ball out of his hand and Tate Ratledge came over and wasn't having any of it. And so you just saw the players, I'm sure they've already been bonding a ton, but it's even easier, I would believe, to continue that bonding process when you're going against another team versus the other half of your own team.
Mhm. Yeah, Jacob. What have you read or anything with the offensive line, or you want to speak on any of that?
Well, just real quick, because he talks about the bonding. It seems like the bond has been broken very quick with Iffy and JMO, from what I saw with the reports. The media talked to Iffy today, and he said it was nice being back in the building. Seeing people that he used to know. He mentioned a couple of coaches, and he starts naming a bunch of players. And then he tried to move on, and then of course the reporter's like, "Well, what about Jameson Williams?" He's like, "Yeah, he likes to talk." He said the JMO's the one that swung on him. I don't know. That was the day that you were there, right, Matt? Did you see any of that? That was to end practice.
Yeah, so I lament this. Right after practice, right as practice ended, once it ended, then you can take pictures again. So I took a picture, just a wide shot picture, and there's a nice big space between both teams. Incredibly, 4 seconds later, there wasn't a space. And I'm like, if only I had shot video instead of a still frame photo, or if I had taken maybe 2 or 3 photos in a row like people often do with cell phone cameras, then I might have actually gotten a little bit better idea of how it all went down. But there was a clear divide, and then obviously something was exchanged or something, and that caused them to get into it a little bit. But in some ways, this isn't that different than when we've seen other guys come back from the Lions before. We had another defensive back that left at one point and came back, and it was 2 years ago. And I forget the defensive back, but I think he went to the New York Giants. And, when he came back, that, another guy was giving him a hard time. And it wasn't one of the guys that he had been teammates with. It was another guy the Lions had brought in and whatnot. But it's, it can't be easy for Iffy coming back to Detroit. I mean, I know he chose to sign there as a free agent and everything, but he also knows the team he's coming back to and what the expectations are.
You were referring to CJGJ and Amana Warrior. And
Warrior, that's who it was.
I was at that practice, and they were talking about CJGJ. He's going to be back next week, and we'll hear because he's on the Texans. I knew he had an injury, but it sounds like he's going to be back, regardless if he's injured or not.
Here.
Yeah, exactly. Almost the same exact thing. First practice, serious near injury. No, it's fine. Yeah, you're going to hear him mouth off next week for sure in Lions practice. I know that the beat writers will be commenting on that. Speaking of the JMO iffy stuff, I'm sure you guys both saw the video of the 50-yard bomb that he caught today. He instantly whips his head around. Like, JMO almost got whiplash from like spinning his head around to like say to Iffy. It's like I that was like the first play of 11 on 11s, and I feel like JMO's like, just throw it up to me. I'm gonna score this touchdown and just give it to him. It feels like him and Goff came up with that, and that's just what they were gonna do.
When you can see his confidence is growing. I mean, it has since last year. And last year it grew from the end of the previous season. That his confidence and his understanding of the game is catching up with his ability, and that's a very dangerous combination for any defender to have to kind of take on.
I know the expansion of his route tree and just his overall knowledge of the offense is just going to make him so much more dangerous. There were times where he disappeared from the game plan or just like from a game for stretches, like 2 or 3 games, and then he'd have I know he had a pretty good season, but there were just games that he disappeared. I don't see that happening this year. I see that they're going to just keep him, keep him going. Jacob, were you worried for Jameson's neck when he turned around and got in Iffy's face?
Yeah, right. No, that was hilarious.
Oh,
Something he does not have to work on is his trash talking ability. He's had that since day one.
yes.
He'll let you know when you got beat for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Amon-Ra had another good day today. If we're going to talk about today, so it seems like he had another dominant day. I know Justin Rogers and I think Jeremy Reisman talked about him trying to go up with a one-handed catch, and it was kind of like, I've done everything else. I'm going to try to do something amazing. That was the only thing that didn't work for him. But Miami did not have an answer for him at all. It'll be interesting to see because I don't believe Miami's defense. I mean, they got some really nice pieces, but their secondary outside of Minka is probably very suspect. The Texans
The injuries.
Yes.
The injuries that Miami had. That's really what left them.
Yes. Well, that and they got rid of Ramsey. They know they got Minka on that, but their number one cornerback went down, right?
Kodu.
Jones is their second cornerback and trying to cover Amon-Ra. So it'll be interesting to see how they do next week. It was a great test. It was nice for a confidence builder for our offense and just for us as fans. I just know for me, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulder. Okay, I can breathe. This offense is going to be good. But it'll be nice to see another team. If we could repeat this performance next week, then I'm really going to say, okay, we really got something going. Am I worried about the offense? No, but it is just nice to have these constant reminders of how dominant this team could be.
A few more things I saw on the offensive side. One, Tim Patrick was out there, but just pads on, no helmet or anything yesterday. And so I know he's working back from an injury. Don't overlook Khalif Raymond. That guy made some really nice catches in practice as well. And so you're kind of like, man, how far are we going down the list here of guys that are playmakers on this team? And it's like, you want to take away St. Brown and J-Mo. I mean, Raymond's made some big catches in last season. So, and before that. So, and Ronnie Bell even got some reps because they had to work some guys in. Tesla, that guy looks like he's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I want to know your opinion. That was the first time you saw him, right? Like in person. So before you get into like what you thought of his play was, your first impression when you see this kid, like what,
tall.
like, yeah.
Tall. His height stuck out to me. I'm like, that guy is tall. I think he's 6'4". I don't know for sure.
Yep.
But it was easily identifiable that this guy's got some height on him, and he looked strong. So and he showed it, and not just at wide receiver, but at gunner too. And so he's going to be used in a lot of areas. You might not always. It's not just is he going to be catching the ball,
right? Oh no, he's going to find the field. Like he's going to be special teams number one. We'll get to special teams a little bit later, but yes, he's on the field week one with that alone, regardless of his offense. I was shocked when I saw him, especially when he's up to the next of the wide receivers. Like he just seems like on another level. Brad Holmes might have got himself one there. You brought up a great point with Khalif Raymond because this training camp, I mean, I've seen Khalif a lot more with the ones than I remember seeing him last year. And I'm wondering if Morton is going to be working with Khalif a little bit more than maybe Ben Johnson had. Matt or Jacob, you got any thoughts on that? I know you were high on Khalif last year, kind of underperformed what maybe your expectations were statistically. But what do you have?
Well, last year was also operating under the assumption before Tim Patrick came along. I really thought they were going to give Khalif a chance to, be out there more frequently. And then once we got Tim Patrick, they just didn't, But you're right. He has been working more with the ones. We've seen a lot more out of him. I feel like he's always, had that aspect of his game. He just hasn't really been able to show it a whole lot. So there's a lot of mouths to feed. So I don't know how much you could possibly have him out there. But, in certain packages, if someone needs a breather or something, he's showed that he's capable of playing that position. He's not just out there to return kicks.
Yeah, I remember seeing a chart like a couple years ago that he had the most one of the, if not the highest, the amount of separation he had on per catch was higher than a majority of receivers. And when you talk to the beat writers and everything for training camp, it seems like no one can cover this guy one-on-one. So I'm always kind of surprised that he doesn't get a chance in the offense. And I know his special teams stuff, they don't want to wear him down. They want to give him they want to limit his touches. But Matt, what do you think about him having more appearances in this offense this year? Do you see that coming, or you think it's going to be more the same as last year?
I think it's probably going to be somewhat situational because, are they looking for, is it a goal line package? Is it, what's the situation called for? Because there's a lot of guys to feed. You've got the top two. The difference going in, and Jacob alluded to that, is we don't know we're not worried. Do we have a number 3 or 4 on this team? We're talking about who's the 5 and 6 because we know our receiving core is that deep. And I think it's just going to be a situational thing, and we'll kind of have to see how it goes. But the nice thing is there won't be much of a drop-off. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have a very good player if he's your number 4 wide receiver on this team. And that doesn't even count the tight end room.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Jackson,
if Khalif is out there, he could be dangerous, in the short game or, possibly running screens, stuff like that. But he's not going to be as valuable as having Tesla out there blocking. So if Khalif is, out there for packages specific to Khalif, that's probably what I think they would use him more than to have him out there and those other things where, Tesla, Patrick, somebody else is going to be better at.
Yeah. I want to get to Jackson Meeks. Dominic Lovett did come back today. You didn't get to see him on Wednesday, but he did come back today, so that's good to see. But Jackson Meeks had a good preseason game last week. Did you see him at all or have any impressions of him from practice, Matt?
I'm trying to remember, and actually, I'm going to – no, I don't know if I've got some notes right here. Let me see if I've got anything on there because I was taking notes furiously here.
I'm sure you were.
It's hard. I mean, as you guys know, there's so much going on. You look down to type in notes, and then you're like, wait, what did I miss?
Yep.
And,
right.
I don't have anything specifically on Meeks,
Okay.
I don't, unfortunately.
No, I mean, we saw him in the practice where we saw him get some goal line work. He scored a touchdown. He might have scored 2 touchdowns in the practice that we saw. And then, he had he only had 3 catches, but he had probably the biggest catch of the preseason, that 68-yarder, to flip the field and get us in scoring position. So that's somebody that's really battling for a spot between him and Lovett. And I know when we drafted Lovett, I said there was a long shot for him to make the team, and I didn't see kind of where he fit in. But, just thus far in preseason, I feel like he is the one with the upper hand at the roster spot right now. I think if the 53 had to be made right now, Lovett would be the last one in, and then you'd have to try to hope that Meeks would stay on for the practice squad.
Yeah,
but
Meeks
they're battling
an Isaiah Williams type guy from last year, which we're going to see some guys end up on other rosters when all is said and done. I have a very strong feeling.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to keep everybody, and I'm you wonder what the Lions are going to do. Are we going to keep someone that we know, like a more of a veteran type that we know might slip on the practice squad, to keep one of these younger guys and play some of these roster gymnastics that they'll do? But regardless, we're going to lose someone that we would rather not lose. But that's the price you pay when having a top roster. Was there anything else from the offense that you saw either from today or from yesterday that you wanted to talk about?
On the offense, I wanted to circle back to the Sam Laporta news that Jacob talked about, because I saw Laporta on the sideline, and he came over and on our show yesterday afterwards, I thought he was just cramping up. They were stretching him. It looked like his lower body was getting stretched out on the sideline. Goff came over. They were chatting it up a bit, and it didn't look serious and whatnot, and so nobody even hinted about it afterwards, that there was an injury, but evidently there was and whatnot. But it looked to be his lower body that they were working on quite a bit on the sideline. He was, on and off the sideline, and then under this like little black padded thing that they use for other practice stuff as well. But so that's all I got on Laporta.
Yeah, that's good. That's good information, Matt. Because we're all Campbell was to say today was that he's out with an injury. He wouldn't say anything. It didn't say very long, so you think it's soft tissue. Um, but last year he was, injured a little bit in the preseason and kind of started out slow. So I'd rather not risk anything and just have him come back. He's not gonna play in these preseason games. After next week we won't see very much because the joint practice will be over and the preseason games will be over. Anything else, Jacob, that we missed on the offense that you want to talk about?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Let's move over to the defense. Now, I know you didn't see it on too much on your side of the field, but I know you've read the reports, and you noted to me that you wanted to talk about the defensive ends. So let's start there. What I know Hutch is going to be the main point, but yeah, talk about whatever you need to talk about, and we'll comment on it.
All right. Well, so yeah, the defense was mostly on the other side of the field. While I got to see the offense, but I saw a couple things from the distance. Coach gave me some insights that he saw, and then when they all came over, I got to see the defense. Our ones against their ones,
Okay.
and yeah, you want to start with Hutch. That's a great spot to start because he is as advertised. I mean, I think you saw him in camp and understood it. We got to see him against a different team. And it wasn't going up against Giovanni Manu or Dan Skipper. Nothing against those guys, but he was going up against somebody else and somebody that didn't know him or he didn't know their stuff. And he was amazing. I'll tell you, from when I saw him on the 11 on 11s, the part that stood out to me, Tua did 2 quick passes, and they were really short, and it wasn't enough for a first down. And then on third down, Hutch got them to do a false start. He was just lined up and ready to go. And then after the penalty, they lined up to go and do it. And Hutch just rushed in there and pushed the guy back like a bull rush. And Tua had to get rid of it. And I don't think he completed that pass. If he did, it wasn't for much. And then on fourth down, they didn't get it. So it was a turnover. But Hutch looked very impressive. Marcus Davenport, I've heard this, and I don't know if I've witnessed it before, but we were looking at him before practice even started, and his size just jumps out to you. He's the type of guy the Lions want at defensive end. And Coach was over on watching them on the goal line stuff, and he said Hutch and Davenport on the defensive line there on the goal line is very, very formidable. And so, again, it's been talked about ad nauseum. Your best ability is your availability, and that's been his crux so far, is he's not been able to kick that. I have this thing, and I think most people would agree, or maybe they wouldn't, but it's not the same injury over and over, right? And so if it's the same injury and it's habitual, then you start to worry. But it's been a myriad of different ones, and that's where I'm just hopeful that it's just been, all right, at some point, luck's got to change. Matthew Stafford's luck wasn't too good his first couple of seasons. I know Davenport's been in the league a little bit longer, but if he's healthy, he is a very, very capable defensive end, which is why I understand why Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are so excited about him. You've got those guys on the end. That's going to create a lot of difficulties for teams to double team. If you're going to double team Hutch, Davenport's going to get a lot of opportunities. And so they looked really good on the 7-on-7s, and they got in there, and there was not a lot of time for the quarterbacks.
That's awesome.
Or the 11-on-11, sorry.
The 11-11s, yeah. That's great to hear. I'm really hopeful on Davenport too. So Jacob and I saw Hutch. I don't know how much you could add, Jacob, but is there anything that you want to? I mean, he's just completely dominant.
Right. No, we said it. I mean, he's fully back. Anyone that had any kind of doubts or, concerns about him coming off this injury, you would not be able to guess that he was injured. You would not know that he had a catastrophic injury last year because he's just fully back up to speed. And really, I think he's better. He looks better. He looks like he's taken that next step, as you would think, another year under his belt. I saw the one highlight, though, where it was it almost looked like the guy didn't even hear the snap because Hutch blew by him so quick. He didn't even get his feet up. It was just crazy how fast he came across the line. And yes, Davenport always been able to collapse a pocket. I mean, just massive, like you said, Matt, just the availability, his health. I'm hoping that he can stay healthy. He makes a huge difference, collapsing that side of the pocket for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if either of you caught the Goff interview on 97.1 and just talked, Goff, they asked him, is it nice to not face your own defense? And, same thing, they were annoying me, but they talked about the hutch rule. And he's like, yeah, he ruins practices just like Aaron Donald did. And, you know, we were wondering, Matt, you made a great point. He was going against Manu and Skipper, right? So like not even our top ones, but he was still putting moves on Panay and still having success
Yeah.
against Panay. So that had a little bit of like, okay, Hutch is back. I mean, he's out there running, he's playing. We could see him do it, but now he's just dominating another team. And you'll see if he does it again next week, which I assume he's going to do because Hutch is just Hutch. So I think another point that you made that I think other people are going to forget about is like not only does Hutch calls all this pressure, but he causes other teams to make penalties, either holding or false starts. And I know those don't go in the box score, but they certainly change the game. I mean, that holding penalty in that playoff game, then that poster right behind you in that Rams game, knocked the Rams out of playoff or out of field goal range that, and they had to go for it on fourth down. So that stuff is it doesn't go in the box score, but it's going to make a big difference. We all have short-term memories and we forget. I know everyone wants a defensive end, but he's a monster. Um, what else on the defense did you see? Did you notice the secondary at all? And I don't in the 11-on-11, and what was your impressions of that?
You know, early on, and I was on the other side. They were on the other side of the field, but there were 2 interceptions, and I think Zach Wilson threw the interceptions. But Nick Whiteside actually came down with one of those interceptions. I think returned it for a touchdown. And again, we heard the roar of it, and we could see him going down the field. And so that's exciting, and I'm optimistic and hopeful for the guy because that's somebody who came into camp late. And you know how it is. Campbell's like, hey, you get in here, you get a shot, you do something with it. I mean, look what Jake Fromm did last year when he got in here late and parlayed that into a spot. Whiteside, especially with some of the injuries that have happened, he might be a guy that could, initially I thought was maybe make the practice squad, but now there's whispers of he might have a shot at the 53-man, depending on how everything shakes out in that secondary. And so, again, that's a guy that, Coach talked about. He started in Washington. He got some games, but then there was a coaching change there, and sometimes people get lost in the shuffle. So he was out last year of the NFL, I believe, and then he's made the most of his opportunities. And Campbell's liking what he's seeing, and he actually contributed on special teams as well. As far as the starting secondary, when they had the 11-on-11s with the ones, nothing got deep. And I think this is a combination of a lot of things. The defensive line didn't give Tua the opportunity to wait long enough for it to get deep. But then whenever somebody caught one, and again, I only saw 2 catches, they were for like 3 or 4 yards. And I don't remember if it was a linebacker or a defensive back making that tackle, but there was no yak. It was, you caught it, okay, you're going down. And so, Coach brought up a real interesting thing that he observed, which is, he thinks the defense is trying to bait the quarterback a little bit more, trying to dare them to throw the ball. And I don't know if that's the thing that they're trying to, look at trying to get more turnovers on or whatnot, but it shows you the confidence they're getting back there if they're starting to do a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Kirby's a guy that can do that, right? I mean, he is a ball hawk, and I know that he hasn't been in practice yesterday or today, and there was some stuff said, well, Dolphins didn't have Tyreek out there, but we didn't have Kirby, and Terrion didn't play most of it either, so we were down 2. So we dominated that part that you watch. They went a 3-and-out and then 4-and-out at the end of the practice there, and then today they tried a thing at midfield and they went 4-and-out. And so our defense side, from what I understand, it started out a little slower today, but picked it up in the second half. Are we going to have 2 top 5 units, Jacob?
It looks that way, right? Yeah. I mean, it sounds that way. Returning the people that we're returning, adding the pieces that we've added. I mean, we have a stacked lineup. I don't know if you have it in front of you. I know Terrion was a limited participant, but he did not go in the full like a joint practice or scrimmage. Do you know who they had in Terrion and Kirby spots?
I think Rocky Sin was the safety.
Was the safety? Okay.
From what I understand.
I thought Rocky Sin was the safety, but I did not know if Whiteside or Hallett was the one who they put in over Terrion.
That I don't know. Do you have notes on that at all, Matt?
I don't, because again, that area, I mean, Whiteside
far away.
His interception was on Zach Wilson, who would have been running with the twos for Miami. But it doesn't mean they weren't swapping them in and out because, these guys are getting elevated due to these injuries. And I'm glad you brought up Rock Ya-Sin, because that guy is hitting hard and he's playing well. And he's a guy who was drafted high, but has been with 3 different teams in the last 3 years. But he may have found a home here, and hopefully he's as advertised the way he's looking, and he can stick around for a little while, a few years.
I think it's interesting that they're basically just putting him at safety right now, and I don't think that has anything to do with what they think of him at cornerback. I think that he was playing so well there because in the first preseason game, he was one of the lone bright spots in that game. And I think that they feel comfortable with him already there. And they're like, let's get him as many reps. Because I think at that point, they decided this guy's making this team. We just need to make him, where can he play? And that's what I think they're testing him out. And so I'm not worried that they only have him at safety right now. I think that they already figured we know he could play corner, at least well enough for what we need him to play corner in the situations that we need him to play. But in a situation, could we put him back at safety? Is that an option? Because the thing outside of Terrion and DJ Reed, everybody else in that secondary, outside of Kirby's going to play just safety, but everyone else can play multiple positions. And so you get in a situation where you're in a game and you got an injury, you got ready-made guys that can just move in. Avonte Maddox has had he hasn't been lights out in camp, but he's been as advertised. He's a veteran guy that could come in, get you some snaps in a pinch.
Well, that's the nice thing about having veterans here, right? These aren't just young, undrafted guys. These are guys who have been around the league, who have been in multiple systems. And you're absolutely right, that versatility with Rock Ya-Sin to be able to sub in at safety, because a Meek, if they need to, they can bump him out to one of the left or right defensive back positions. So there's a lot of versatility.
Yes, I love it. Nick Whiteside is a guy that I think you're right. We need to have a long look at a guy like him making the 53. Dan Campbell loves a guy that can just come into camp and show out, and he's been the cornerback that's done that. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, DiCaprio Boodle, leaving definitely gave Whiteside a shot at definitely more snaps.
And Whiteside didn't get signed until July 28th, so think about that too.
I know. Yeah.
Right.
It says something when you can just come in and make an impression like that, and Dan Campbell talks about it all the time. We're giving you a shot. Make the best of it. And he certainly has. He showed up in the preseason game, and he's showing up in practice. So,
I mean, we kept 11 defensive backs last year. And you look, I know I talked about this last week, but I mean, I talked about this before the Maurice Norris injury, which thank God he's okay. He's already back in the facility. He's just in concussion protocol, which is wild. Unbelievable, but thank God he's okay. But you can assume that he's probably on the outside looking in now, probably cut and then practice squad for Maurice because he was questionable before that. But I mean, is Ian Kennelly going to make this team as an undrafted free agent just because what he can do on special teams and a safety? I don't know. You've got, like you already said, the versatility of Rock, Hallett also inside outside, Avonte Maddox. Some of these guys are going to make the team. We don't know when Dorsey's going to be back. So maybe he's, if he's not ready, then that's another roster spot for somebody. I've said it before, but that's where I'm looking for the preseason is just what these corners are doing. Who's going to make the most of their opportunity? So to hear, Whiteside stepping up and giving everything that he's got, makes me feel better about giving him a roster spot. Right.
Mm-hmm.
We've,
Jacob, I think you're absolutely right on these injuries with so many guys that are either, been put on IR, because you've got Dan Jackson who's out, you've got Enos Rakestraw that's out. There's some roster spots that have opened up, and then the other thing is there's some guys who are going to come back in 4 to 6 weeks who aren't going to be available just yet, right? We don't think Malcolm Rodriguez is going to be ready. We know Aleem McNeil won't be ready. So there's even more roster spots that in the temporary time are going to be available. And so you're exactly right. These preseason games, see who shines, see who's making the difference between that and at the joint practices, because there are opportunities out there.
100%. We didn't talk about the linebackers much. Did you have anything insights on them at all? I know they were on the other side of the field, but maybe in the 11-on-11s you saw?
I didn't have too much. Again, the only thing I would have said is if it was a linebacker or a defensive back, whoever was covering the guy that caught the ball, that guy didn't gain another yard. So that back seven was shutting things down quick. But I didn't have any individual stuff.
Okay.
I saw Anzalone out there, but I didn't actually see him in a play specifically.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that linebacker room, especially when Malcolm comes back. Grant Stewart's a monster. All effort. So yeah, if Davenport's healthy, they got a team, and we haven't even talked to Aleem, like you just mentioned. Aleem's out. When Aleem comes back, wow, man, that's gonna be formidable to go against. Anything else on the defense, guys, that I skipped over or that you want to mention?
Just real quick before we leave, because we just talked about the linebackers, do you think there's any sort of battle for roster position when it comes to the linebacker room? Or do you think they're already set in stone? You've got ABC, Anzalone, Barnes, Campbell. Grant Stewart is obviously going to make the roster.
Mhm.
And then, in my opinion, I think Nowaski and Cunningham are both going to be on the team. And I think that regardless of what happens in these next couple of weeks, outside of injuries, obviously, I think that room is set. I don't think Pittman, Gilbert, or Turner, those are their linebackers, I think, on the team. I don't think that there's anything that they can show that would change that now.
I agree. I think those top 6 are there, and maybe you get Pittman or Turner on the practice squad, but I don't think they're raving about Zach Cunningham, and we already know Trevor Nowaski. I mean, they lost him when they didn't want to, and then they grabbed him off waivers last year, not even waiting for him to be a free agent. And he's got versatility, and he can back up other positions and play good at special teams. So I think you're right on that, Jacob.
I think you're right.
Especially looking at the special teams. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
I was going to say Nowaski was interesting because he had a very poor preseason. The Hall of Fame game was bad. He rebounded pretty nicely the last preseason game. And if you paid attention, they normally have him played at Sam, and he's the only guy that they will have play at Sam other than Derek Barnes, the starter. So he's like the only backup. So I think he was going to make the team on that alone. But then they had him play a middle linebacker in the second preseason game. And I think that, they're again cross-training him. So I think that he's pretty safe. I think Cunningham is going to make this team. I think you're right on the top 6. The interesting thing is when Malcolm comes back, Cunningham may be the guy that, depending on how things shake out, I think Cunningham's going to would be the odd man out at that point, if everyone's healthy at that, because they're not going to take Stewart. We're going to talk about special teams here in a second, but Stewart's going to make that for being special teams alone. And he's what you need for a linebacker. He's all effort. He's gonna, he's not. There's a reason why he's, linebacker 4 or 5, because of, he has certain limitations, but he's gonna give you all effort all the time, and that's what you want for your backups. Anything else, Jacob? I kind of cut you off.
No,
there.
I mean, you basically know, because you said what I was going to say too, is that ideally they'd all be healthy, and then you'd have to have this conversation about who goes when Rodrigo comes back, and not, God, we need Rodrigo to come back because of the injuries that have been happening in the linebacker room, So we're hoping that.
Yep. All right.
Jason, are you going to circle back to the offense and talk about backup quarterback later?
We're going to do that a little bit in the preseason game, just because I want to talk about Hendon there, and I think we could just we could get them both in there, if that's okay with you.
No, totally. I just wanted to make sure if you weren't going to bring them up, I wanted to make sure I shared.
Yeah, let's just hit them in the preseason stuff, because I think the Hendon talk is going to be there. But let's just talk special teams first. Jake Bates made 5 field goals today. Was he kicking on Wednesday at all?
No, only Jack Fox. There were no
Okay.
kickoffs. There were no field goals. Just Jack Fox punting.
Okay. All righty. And I'm sure Jack Fox did Jack Fox things when you were there. Yeah.
Oh, he did, and he wowed one when he angled one towards the sideline by the end zone, and both punters were booming them on Wednesday.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, Jake Bates is having a better camp than he had last year, and he had an awesome year last year. So I'm expecting the same. Let's talk about the returners real quick because we just talked about this guy, Grant Stewart. It's looking like he's going to be the starting returner along with Vaki. It's looking like that maybe it's going to be Vaki and Stewart back there. I know Stewart started out with a fumble, but Matt, do you have thoughts on him being, the primary kick returner this year?
I'll say this: I don't think anybody saw that coming. I saw that right away. Like I'm like, we got a linebacker back there. But I'll say I like it actually, and it goes back to we have a whole year of the kickoff under our belt now. So now everybody can analyze and think, all right, well, what is that we're looking for? What do we need? We know Stewart's got some great speed for a linebacker. Sione Vaki's a guy I was hoping was going to be more of a guy involved with the kick return game last year because of his speed and elusiveness. And I've got to, I think the kick returner is going to be a different type of person than, it was for, however long in the NFL, because it's not the Mel Grays. It's not the Deion Sanders necessarily. It's going to be somebody who can, not just make guys miss, but maybe knock guys over and go through them, which is what Grant Stewart could do. And I either read this or heard somebody say it, which is if you got those guys back there and you kick to Stewart, you want to tackle that guy. And if you kick to Vaki, Stewart's going to come knock you down so Vaki can get through. I do like it. They used Craig Reynolds a lot there last year, and I believe it was a Washington game. They kept kicking it to Reynolds because his speed wasn't the same as the other return man, which I think was Raymond. I'm trying to remember here. But, yeah, I want two options back there. And Craig Reynolds, he is great in so many other ways, but I don't think that's his spot. I think I would love to see what Vaki and Stewart. I'm excited about that. I don't know if they'll mix it up or change it at some point, but I like those options. What about you guys?
Go ahead, Jacob.
Well, I think we saw from the get-go the problem with having Stewart back there, and that's him being able to carry the ball effectively and be able to withstand being hit. Right away, very first play fumble. It's preseason. We try to fix these things now, but God forbid, as soon as that happens in the regular season, then, Dave Fift's going to be answering questions about that and why we're doing what we're doing because it is so unconventional. But you're right. He's out there because he's going to be hard to bring down and because, you're going to let the other guy return the ball. He's going to go knock somebody's head off and go clear the path to try to score a touchdown. But I think what you're going to find is that a lot of teams are, if we do stick with this, a lot of teams are just going to kick it to him, right? Yeah. They're going to kick it. They're going to take their chances with the linebacker. They're going to try to strip the ball from him. They're going to hope he bobbles it and, doesn't field it properly. And then we got to start the ball deep in our own territory. For those kinds of reasons, which obviously it's a small sample size for me, I'm sure the team's seen, countless reps of this. So I would feel better with Craig Reynolds back there or somebody else other than the linebacker.
At first, I was like, what is this gimmick that they're talking about? I remember Eric Schlitt talking about that they had him back there catching. I remember the for early practices, and I was like, what are we doing? And then Justin Rogers said something. We're going to see him do it in the first preseason game, and chatted about it on Twitter. And I thought, are we just doing this just because it's a Hall of Fame game and this is kind of a joke that we're just doing this? But no, it's for real. But man, I think you put a great point. Is I like this combination of Grant Stewart and Vaki back there because whoever catches it, the other guy could block, and I think that's different than when we're talking Jacob didn't know who Mel Gray was, but I knew who Mel Gray was. And so you just had guys that just returned, like a Khalif Raymond that's back there, but Khalif isn't going to put a block on someone. So if you kick it to the other guy, Khalif's, I'm not saying that he's can't block, but he's just not going to be as effective blocker as like Vaki or Stewart out there. So I think you do have to put your return team a little different. And the reason why I don't want Craig back there is the point that you made, Matt, is that you're going to kick it to him. Craig's going to get you up to the 28, 30-yard line, and that's what we're going to get. Vaki's got a little shift, and he can move. And Grant Stewart's already talked about his ball security. Like in the interview with Dan Miller right afterwards, he's like, I haven't carried a ball in forever. That's something I got to work on. So I don't think the Lions are going to put him out there if he's a liability. They're going to make sure that he holds on the ball. I'm sure they're running on other drills. They might be running through those linebacker drills that I don't know if you saw this, Matt, when you were there, but they have like two bags and they are just slapping the crap out of the ball carrier trying to get the ball out. So I'm sure they're doing that with Grant to make sure he holds on to it. But it is interesting thought. It is just reminds you of the interesting stuff we're going to see this year in the kickoff with more kick returns. We're going to see what these other teams do.
Yeah.
I don't know who all is going to be on the kickoff return team, but it sounds like Tesla is going to be on the kickoff return team. When I saw today when they put out the number one team, because I think they did work on kickoffs today, and Tesla was out there. So when you had mentioned earlier that he's going to be on the field day one, yeah, we might see him on the very first play of the season if we're returning a kick, or I don't know if he's going to be on the coverage team too, but it's awesome. Anything else on special teams before we move on to the preseason game, guys?
Well, I'll just summarize it, which is, I echo what Justin Rogers said about this yesterday, and the Lions owned this practice, and I think the exact words Justin Rogers gave were he has seen many of joint practices in his time, and he's never seen one this dominated by both sides of the ball on Wednesday, and it was so impressive and so much fun for Lions fans.
Yeah. And usually when you have a practice that's dominated by one team, the other team like either gets embarrassed or they just rebound the next day. And why I think Miami did play better today, the Lions still won both sides of the ball from everything that I've read. So good on the Lions for just not giving in and knew that Miami was going to give it their shot today. Or maybe they're soft like Grant Stewart kind of alluded to. I don't know. So we got a game. We're going to play Miami on Saturday. Are you going, Matt?
I will not. I'm not able to get down there this weekend for it.
Yeah. Matt has season tickets like I do, so I always check with him to see if he's going. But I as of right now, I'm gonna go.
Nice.
So I will be seeing a lot of the 13 reps out there. So are you gonna be? I assume you're gonna be watching on TV. What? What are you looking for, Matt, in this game? We'll start there.
I guess you're looking to probably. I don't know how much I'll be able to tell from the broadcast, but you want to see, is there someone that's elevating themselves for the number 3 tackle position, or is it Dan Skipper, the number 3? Then who's the number 4 tackle? So you're kind of looking to see some elevated play with that. And then is Coyote Awashika going to be the top guard as your backup? That's a guy that I've always liked, and I think it goes back to the Tampa playoff game 2 seasons ago where he filled in and did a great job. And so the offensive line play, and you need them to play well, whichever group you have. And again, we had a major shift right at the beginning of the Atlanta game, and that impacted quarterback play right away because suddenly you're shuffling things right before the game. I know you're going to get into the quarterback stuff because I think everyone wants to see that. But the offensive line is what I'm looking to see the most, I think, just who's going to be the next guy and on each spot.
Okay. Outside of the quarterback stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute, Jacob, what are you looking for in this game?
I talked about it briefly, but defensive backs. I just want to see them step up. I want to see the coverage. I want to see somebody. The spots are there for the taking. I want to see somebody come in and earn the spot. I want to see what they have in this game. And also, the receivers. I love it, practice. So hopefully he's going to be out there. When he was out there, he got most of the targets over Meeks and Tesla, really. So be interesting to see with those 3 out there, how they look. If Tesla is going to be getting a lot of work, I don't know. Might seen enough out of him already, but
yeah, Tesla's the name. I just want to see him just because I just think he's impressive. I want to see him out there, but I'm starting to questioning, where we got to play him smart with injuries, and it'll be interesting to see, like, do we want to get Meeks more reps? Love it if he's able to go. We're gonna definitely want to get him out there. So I kind of but I also want to give these quarterbacks a fair shake and have a good target like Tesla out there. Tom Kennedy, I think, came back from injury. He's the preseason superstar, although he hasn't done very much in the first 2 games. So I know he's going to make the practice squad, but we'll see if Tom Kennedy shows up. The other thing I'm looking for is can we give Craig Reynolds a break and get Vaki out there? And that's what
Yeah.
I want to see Vaki. I mean, Vaki came back today, scored 2 touchdowns in practice today. Justin Rogers wrote a really nice article about him. If you're a subscriber, I definitely recommend that you read that. I want to see Vaki out there. I want to see what he's got. We haven't seen him at all. He's injured. He was injured for both practice or all 3 practices that I went to, so I didn't get to see him on the practice field at all. He had a couple nice runs in the preseason. We know what he can do in special teams. I just want to see him out there and see if he can give some of this offensive some life, because we're gonna need something back there to run the ball to extend drives. These quarterbacks just can't keep throwing the ball. We got to be able to run it a little bit. Let's talk about those quarterbacks. So this is a huge game for Hendon Hooker, and you could throw in your Kyle Allen talk in here too, Matt. So I'm gonna have you start out with you. What do you think Hendon's gonna have to show in this game, and what's Kyle gonna show?
I mean, this is a very complex conversation right here, right? Kyle Allen, Hendon Hooker. There's a lot of moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle's presumably starting this game since Hendon started the last game. As far as Kyle in practice, I mean, he picked up where he left off in that Atlanta game, which is he showed poise in the pocket. And there's one play where there were 2 Miami Dolphins like right in his face within seconds, and he calmly got the ball right over them, I believe, to Craig Reynolds, who then gained probably 10 or 15 yards. And it's just like that calming presence that Kyle Allen seems to have as a veteran is a good thing. He's not panicking. And so I just want to see Kyle Allen kind of do exactly what he did in that Atlanta game. And if he does that, I feel good about him there. As far as Hendon Hooker goes, you want to see a step forward. He got pulled early because he fumbled the ball twice. Now, his stats weren't the worst as far as passing. I think 7 for 10, and Meeks had that early drop. That also changed things because that meant they didn't get a first down, and then he didn't get the drive, and they didn't run the ball as well early. So he didn't get into a rhythm. But other than that, I still think Hendon looked less comfortable, less confident in the pocket. And, these joint practices, I think, is when a lot of players get the opportunity to grow because they're going against other 2s and 3s from other teams. And so I'm hoping yesterday and today was really good. And you need to see Hendon grow more than you see Kyle Allen grow. I think Kyle Allen significantly better than, Sudfeld, Boyle, Blau, and whoever else we've had recently as a backup. So I'm okay with Kyle Allen being our number 2. If Hendon's not ready, I would prefer it to be Hendon Hooker because I think, as most have said, he's got the skill set to have a higher ceiling. But right now, Kyle Allen might have the higher floor.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way of putting it, Matt. Jacob, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. I know from the report from Pride of Detroit, it said Hendon Hooker only attempted 1 single pass during red zone drills, and he had Zach Horton wide open, and he missed him badly. And that was the only opportunity he got in practice. So this is huge for him in the preseason. And I just feel like, every year, every preseason game, it's like we really want to see Hendon Hooker. We want to see what he's got. And I unfortunately just I was at the point before last week, but I feel like we've already seen what he has, and he's just not picking up the offense as good as he should, and he's just not reliable enough for us right now. And I think that's why, it really was very bad for him, for Kyle Allen to come in. The first week or the Hall of Fame game, they both did not play very well. But for him to struggle against Atlanta and then Kyle Allen to come in and instantly start moving the ball and orchestrating these scoring drives, it just, was way worse for Hendon. And now the pressure is on. So now we're going to see how is he going to respond under the pressure. If Kyle Allen has another, really good game, Hendon has to have a great game to try to get himself back in the backup position. And right now, I think we keep 3 quarterbacks, right? I mean, I don't know how bad Hendon would have to play for us to completely cut him, but I don't think we can cut Kyle Allen at this point because we can't, God forbid something happens to Goff, we can't trust Hendon Hooker to move the ball.
You're right. And that's what it comes down to for me. If there was an injury, in the season, I would feel a lot more comfortable at this point with Kyle Allen. over Hendon Hooker, which probably signals to me that Hendon's just not going to be that guy. It seems like in practice I've seen him make some amazing throws, but every preseason game I've seen either, he was moving the ball a little bit last year, but then he runs and gets a concussion, right? He seems to play a little bit out of control for me. Like he gets a little happy with his legs, will start to run. Easy a play where he could have ran out of bounds, and I think it was the first preseason game, or it might have been the second one, and he chose to do contact, like just run out of bounds. You're not going to gain that much more yards, and then he doesn't keep his eye on downfield, and and then when he does decide to run, he's fumbling the ball, right? I mean, you have to be able to hold on the ball. I think it was very telling that he got the hook after the second turnover. You would think they're going to give him as much opportunity to prove it. And Dan Campbell's like, no, this is it. So that tells me that he's, I won't say on a short lease, but shorter than probably what I expected going into that. Because I thought he was for sure going to get all the way up to the second, go up to the second half. So Kyle Allen played good. And, it seems like after that first preseason game, they went opposite directions. Hendon has not done well either in practice per the reports from the beat writers, and he did not play good in that game. And Kyle Allen's kind of just went the other way, which is good for the Lions. Surprising for me because I just thought I wasn't impressed with Kyle Allen in the practice that we went to, but it seems like he's maybe get more comfortable with the offense, get more comfortable with his receivers, and just playing better. So this is a huge game for Hendon because if he doesn't show it in this game, I mean, he's got one more game, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to keep him unless he's showing stuff inside practice that we're not seeing because I haven't seen it.
The perception also. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jacob.
Well, I was just going to say the perception also is just that, he's on his rookie deal. He's a young quarterback. Maybe he'll get it. Maybe he won't. Hendon Hooker's 27 years old. I mean, Kyle Allen is 28, I think, or 29. So they're not that far off. And somehow Kyle Allen feels like a seasoned vet that's been around the league for a while and is, he's able to pick up the offense a little bit quicker. Hendon Hooker, I mean, new coordinator, yes, but Hendon Hooker's been in this system for years now. He should be doing better than he is. At the very least, he should be understanding the offense better and able to work it better than he has been. And that's why I kind of have just felt like, after what we saw in practice and then these games, I just feel like if he hasn't gotten it by now, I just don't think he will.
Well, I want to go back to what you said, Jacob, which is I think they're going to keep three quarterbacks. This is where this is a very complex thing is Hendon Hooker's on that rookie deal. And yes, he has the age he has, but he doesn't have the experience. Kyle Allen was, a rookie back in 2018. He's played in 31 games. He started 19 games. So he's got NFL experience. And I do think, and I brought this up to, Jeremy Reisman and Eric Schlitt on their show was, you could get Kyle Allen onto the practice squad, I think. But I don't think you're getting Hendon Hooker onto the practice squad. Somebody else is going to claim him with 2 years on that rookie deal and give him a chance and see what he can do. So I don't think Hendon Hooker is going anywhere for the next 2 years. I think he's going to be here. The question is, will he be the 2 or the 3? And you're probably going to have to keep him at the 2 or keep and put Kyle Allen on the practice squad. Or if he's the 3, you're keeping both of them. And I think Kyle Allen's shown enough that I honestly wouldn't risk losing Kyle Allen either because he's a different style than Hendon Hooker. But like I said before, his floor seems to be a lot higher right now. You have that experience in the room. It will affect another position if they keep 3 quarterbacks, but I got to believe it's trending that direction, guys.
I just don't. I mean, do you think another team would pick up Hendon Hooker? I mean, everyone. You think that? Do you think that, Jacob?
Based on what we've seen and what we know, I don't think so. But the outside perception for Hendon Hooker, what he did in college, he had the injury. Remember, there was talk maybe he was going to be a first-round pick. And then they're like, well, maybe he fell because of the injury and everything. Maybe not within the NFL circles, but I think outside perception is that Hendon Hooker still has a chance and that he's kind of just not been giving that opportunity because of Goff and because of been playing behind. I don't think that's the case. I know that's not the case. We've already just talked about that. But I think that alone, plus, the whole rookie deal and everything that he may. I just don't. I wouldn't think that he would get claimed. I guess that another team would try to pull him away and try to sign him. I don't think he gets claimed.
Well, the
You know,
reason I think there's
yeah.
there's some teams out there that don't have very good quarterback situations, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
the New Orleans Saints, and so then I think if you claim him, you're still getting his rookie contract, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be that expensive. So I'm not saying I was going to give him a starting job, but
Yeah.
he could be the number 3 guy on a team that might carry 3 quarterbacks who thinks, hey, we don't have a top 15 or 20 quarterback right now on our team. I mean, Cleveland won't claim him because they've got 5, but there's some other teams that could probably use hope because you either have a quarterback or you don't, right? And so, somebody will take everything. I mean, Trey Lance and again, he was a top 5 pick, but he's on a team right now and he's hardly played in the NFL. So I think somebody will be like, hey, maybe he can be our Sam Darnold, I mean, who knows?
No, I get you, but I'd also counter with, if you're a Lions fan, are we missing at that much? He hasn't shown that much. So
Yeah,
yeah, we could lose
you're
him,
right.
and then if we had Kyle Allen, would it be nice to have 3 guys that could run the offense? Would it be nice to have a guy like Hendon Hooker that can run? So if we're facing like a team with a running quarterback, that he can give something for the defense to look at. He's useful in that, like in the scout team. Uh, but any fan that thinks we're going to trade him, I just don't think that you're never going to. He hasn't shown anything. You're not going to get anything for him. If anything, I think we talked about it last podcast, right, Jacob? Maybe you get a swap in the 7th round, like we improved draft position or something like that. I just don't see us getting that unless you're going to trade him for a player that's going to be cut. Like we want to get some depth on our team somewhere where we need, but I just don't see that happening either. Um, I think you're probably right though. The end result is that we're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, but I'm not hopeful on Hendon right now. He's kind of sour. His poise is what's really souring me on him.
And you really changed your tune from before this preseason started, because that's
Yes.
kind of how I was leaning and how I was feeling before.
Mhm.
I know you, the optimist in you, really thought that he was, gonna come out and show something. He's actually making more money than Kyle Allen. So if you were to cut Hendon Hooker and sign him to like a minimum deal, you'd be getting a discount. I think regardless, like let's say we keep 3 quarterbacks, I think we draft a quarterback next year.
I think we're going to
Do you
draft
think
a
so?
quarterback too. And I think
Yes.
it was an old Bob Quinn thing that you draft a quarterback every 2 or 3 years. And I think that like, I say what you want about Bob Quinn, but I actually kind of like that philosophy to see if you could develop a guy in your system, and get that cheap option because you're going to need it. I mean, Goff's going to be our quarterback for the foreseeable future. If we could save some money in the quarterback room and have, decent quarterback, that'd be all right. Because if Goff gets hurt, if you look at this is a bigger topic, but if you look outside the top 20 quarterbacks in this league, you could see why the backups, you're talking like what's out the top 20, who, as far as starting quarterbacks, you got, Spencer Rattler might be a starting quarterback in this league, and we're talking about our backup quarterback situation. That's why there's just not 32 starting quarterbacks in this league. So there's certainly not 32 starting backups in this league, or backups that can come in and win you, 5 or 6 games in a row. That, having Steve Young as your backup is not in the NFL anymore, like Joe Montana had for the longest time.
Yeah, and that's right. I think the Lions are going to hold on to him for at least another year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think these next 10 days are going to be really important for Hendon because
Yeah.
what does he do this week? And then you got joint practice next week. And, presumably he and Kyle Allen will both be splitting snaps in that last game as well. But you're right. He's got to, you want to see more. Beat writers said he looked great early on in training camp. And so we got to see if it can translate and if he can, use this period here to propel forward.
Yeah. You're right on. This is a huge game for Hendon, but he's going to come in with a third team. So he's going to really have to show it on his own. Hopefully he can show some poise, and I don't want to admit that you're right, Jacob. So that's why I glossed over the fact
Okay.
that I was going over to your, over to your side to the dark side, as I said. We do have a chat on here. Dan, I think it's Dan Pask. He says he agrees with Matt. They're going to keep 3. So you got someone that's agreeing with you. Lion King, who's one of our chats, also wanted us to mention about the Miami websites are claiming that the Lions they didn't dominate today's practice. They had a great bounce back, and they showed. I don't know if you guys saw the highlight film of the touchdown that was caught over DJ Reed, but like Jeremy Reisman had pointed out a picture close up that he was out of bounds. If you watch the Miami's video, it's sped up really fast at the end, so you can't even see the video at all. Like they're playing doctored videos over there. They got some AI videos over there in Miami. Just trying to save face. So
they got to keep the fans in it.
They do. They could have a tough year this year, based on how the Lions made them look. But we'll see. Maybe the Lions are just that dominant, and they could face someone else. But they got Buffalo in their division, which is they're dominant too. So, all right, Matt, what's going on at your podcast? If you want to fill everybody in on the not the same old Lions podcast, tell them when they can catch you, where they can catch you, and stuff like that.
Yeah, you can find us on all major streaming platforms for the audio version. Video version, we're now on YouTube. We're releasing the show simultaneously, whether you want the audio or the video format. You can go to notthesameoldlions.com to get access to all episodes and some content that I write on there as well. It's not like game recaps or anything like that. So it's just, when a story moves me, when something comes up, I write about it. And, in season, we tend to do a game preview and a game recap every week. So we usually do about 2 episodes a week. We will be having a season preview coming up here in a couple weeks, and we'll probably preview the division as we did last year as well.
Nice. Matt, why don't you talk a little bit about your 2 co-hosts that you have on there and the dynamic that you have? Because I really like the setup of your show, and just kind of give them a feel of what your show has to offer, because I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pretty great group. I've got James Cook. He's a senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. He's been in the industry for over 25 years, I believe. And he's also named the Sports Writer of the Year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. And he's a Lions fan, but he's also a sports journalist. And then I've got Coach Jerry Angers, who's probably got 25 years of coaching experience, mostly at the high school level. He's done a little bit at the college. And he was named Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He was named Michigan High School Coach of the Year for a state high school coach. And he's also a Lions fan. But he brings in that coaching expertise to the conversation, and James has the journalism aspect, and as do I, because in addition to my teaching job, back in the day I was a weekend sports anchor here in Michigan and got to cover the Lions with that. And so while we are Lions fans, we also kind of have that expertise as well, and it kind of blends together. I mean, you can tell we all tend to be optimistic on the Lions, and maybe it's because we've lived through some lean years. Jason, you can relate to that as well a little better than Jacob can. Although Jacob, you had the roughest years. Maybe not all of them, but you had to live through the Patricia years. So
yeah, and 0-16.
Yeah, okay, you do remember the 0-16 pretty well. Yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of our little blend on it, and we all just kind of bring a little bit of a different expertise to it and whatnot.
Yeah, it blends well, really well together. The coach especially just adds in a different flavor, gives you some of that X's and O's type stuff, and I really enjoy it, and I learned stuff from your show. So, Justin Rogers on a couple weeks ago. Matt always has he has some really good interviews on his program too, so you could check that out. Follow him on Spotify, give him a good 5-star review after you listen to it. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. But for us, Jacob, good week. We're going to see, you got to work on Saturday. I'm going to be at the game. We're going to be back on Sunday. We're going to do our biting recaps on Sunday, correct?
Correct.
All right. So you can catch us out on Sunday.
Once I actually get to fully digest the game, I'll be at work. I won't be able to be as, up close as I usually am.
Yeah, I'll be at the game, and so then I'm going to have to give it a rewatch at home because it's really hard to catch everything that's going on that I want to see in a preseason game on watching it live. Practice is doubly as hard, as Matt knows, maybe even quadruply as hard, because there's like they could be 4 groups going on all over the field, and
Yeah.
you only have one set of eyes. I don't know how some of these beat writers keep the notes that they do. I mean, maybe it's just the practice and stuff like that. I know Jeremy and Eric kind of team up, and that's how they can get that. It's impressive to me, because you said it earlier, Matt. As you're writing a note, you're missing something else that's going on in the field, and people are cheering, and you're like, "Oh, geez, I'll play behind already." So, you know, I appreciate you coming on, Matt, and giving us your insights from practice and keeping the notes that you did. What do you do with those notes, Matt? Do you keep those from year to year? Or are they going up in your scrapbook?
No, those get deleted to make up space, make more space for the next set of notes. Because at one point I thought about keeping them, and game notes I'll sometimes keep for like half the season or whatever. But that digital world gets messy quickly.
It does. It does. I like putting them on the Word or whatever, Google Docs, and I can do Control F and find out what I need to find out real quick. But yeah, my notes, I can hardly read them that later on that day to even decipher them. So like 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, I'm like, what is this even? What does this even mean? I don't know. But all right, for Jacob, I'm Jason. Thank you again, Matt, and let's go Lions.